phela isuyinzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, kumele ngabenza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Ngathi siseduze nayo. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama chana mani. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama chana mani. Yes, yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. She got the shama chana mani. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama chana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. She got the shama chana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phela isuka inzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, melela benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phelisa uyinzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, kumele benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha majarmane. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha majarmane. Yes, yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Shigepisha majarmane. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha majarmane. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Shigepisha majarmane. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phela isuke inzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, melela benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phela isuke inzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, melela benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. Shigepisha macharma, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana. Shigepisha macharma, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
kuyabikwa angikhathali eyonto phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo melela benza njalo I hold myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo
Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepe shama jarma Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepe shama jarma Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Shigepe shama jarma Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepe shama jarma Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Shigepe shama jarma Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana Yilesh makanana
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
khona kuyabikwa angikhathali leyo nto phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo melela benza njalo I hold myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo
Shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana. She got the shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana, yes makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
angikhathali eyonto phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo kumele ngabenza njalo I owe myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo
Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepisha majarima Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepisha majarima Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Shigepisha majarima Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepisha majarima Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Shigepisha majarima Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phela isuke inzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo. Phumelela benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. She got the shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. She got the shama jarma. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana. Yes, makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
phela isuke inzima. Hard work I am. Ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo, melela benza njalo. I hold myself impumelelo. Sesiseduze nayo.
Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepe shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepe shama jarma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepe shama jarma. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shilo ini makanana. Shigepe shama jarma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Shigepe shama jarma. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana. Yes makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
Update. We'll continue with the show on the other side of this.
In our top stories, court dismisses Zuma and Mbeki's recusal application and Stats SA confirms cyber attack. Good morning. The High Court in Johannesburg has dismissed former President Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases inquiry matter. The two had approached the court seeking the removal of retired Justice Sisi Khampepe from the inquiry, with Mbeki also asking for actions already taken by the commission to be set aside. The court found that their failure to follow the correct legal process rendered the application invalid. Zuma and Mbeki have also been ordered to pay legal costs. Civil society organisation, the Activists and Citizens Forum, has slammed the investigating Directorate Against Corruption, IDAC, for targeting National Police Commissioner Fani Masimula. They say the arrest of 12 senior police officers over the 360 million rand Medicaid 24 contract was just a smokescreen to fool the public. The group claims the sudden summons of Masimula is part of a dirty fight back by a faction inside IDAC to capture the police and justice system. Dennis Bloom is the Activists and Citizens Forum spokesperson.
Many other generals implicated in the Majanga Commission and the Parliamentary Ad hoc Committee. Deputy National Commissioner Shadrach Sibia, General Shibili, his name is all over. He is not being charged or summoned to appear before the court. General Sinona, the head of KwaZulu-Natal Hawks, with serious allegations against him.
Statistics South Africa has been targeted in a ransomware attack, with hackers claiming to have stolen over 450,000 files. The breach affected a human resources database used for job applications. Stats SA says it's working with authorities and will notify the information regulator. The XP95 ransomware group is demanding a ransom. They've set the 20th of April as deadline for the payment. Risinga Maluleke is the Statistician General and head of Stats SA.
What was taken from us was more files that relate to HR information. We have an e-recruitment facility which people can access online from anywhere. So this breach could have entered our system through facilities or platforms that they use. They could have been using an internet cafe. They could have been using their phones that may not be protected. And in this regard, it's their information. So it's more like identity theft that is more at risk.
Bus company Patco is today hosting a defensive driver training workshop in Dobsonville in Soweto to prepare over 600 bus drivers for the busy Easter long weekend. Major church groups will be using the bus service for their bulk transport needs. The session at the company's Dobsonville depot will focus on road safety with support from the Road Accident Fund, JMPD and Provincial Traffic Police. Lando Kuhle is the spokesperson for Patco.
From a Patco perspective, our drivers would have already had the necessary qualifications in terms of heavy vehicle operation. So this is not a training that wants to reskill them in terms of driving, but it's a workshop aimed at reminding them of the high pressure period that we're about to embark on and operate in. It's about reminding them of their training from an internal point of view, but the stakeholders we are bringing is to make sure that we give them a sense of what's happening on the ground, the reality really in terms of South African roads, because the stakeholders are ones that have proximity and the experience of what is the latest dangers and trends on South African roads. So it is to prepare them.
And finally, a Russian oil tanker carrying thousands of barrels of crude oil is expected to dock in Cuba this week after US President Donald Trump told journalists that he has no problem with Russia sending oil to the island. The US imposed a fuel blockade in January and had threatened sanctions on any country that delivered crude oil to Cuba. The BBC's Will Grant has the details.
It isn't clear whether the comment represents a reversal of Washington's fuel blockade policy or a temporary softening. Cuba has been facing long and widespread blackouts across the country, including several nationwide collapses of the electrical grid in recent months. The Cuban government and the Trump administration are in talks to find a route out of the crisis, but both sides have publicly set out certain political and economic red lines which make it hard to see where they could find common ground.
Recapping the top story, the High Court in Johannesburg has dismissed former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission case's inquiry matter. The two had approached the court seeking the removal of retired Justice Sisi Khampepe from the inquiry, with Mbeki also asking for actions already taken by the commission to be set aside. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
7 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the Talking Point as we continue to lead conversations that move us. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be looking at governance and corruption. And in particular, I think trying to get to grips with how systemically, what is it that has broken down, that continues to enable the cycles of corruption that we see within our governance framework. If you look at last week, which I think is really such a good reference point, we have officials from one division within the SAPS, procurement division. All of these individuals are actors, they're individual actors, they carry their own agency. And yet, when it came to how they were doing their jobs, they're now accused of having colluded to enable the approval and the appointment of a service provider that was never qualified for that particular work. But what is it that happens within governance that enables that? Because until we understand some of the systems and how things operate, we might not be able to uproot the problem. You could well find that you're bringing in different players, but because the system has not changed, the problems continue. And so we have to understand what about the system is actually broken down, that it enables corruption at the scale at which we see. So we'll get into that conversation shortly. Before we do, let's take some of your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Morning, Kathy. Morning, Kathy. Moses here in Durban. Kathy, it is very shameful to see the oldest organization here in Africa, the ANC, now is producing and promoting crime, gangsterism, thieves, criminals. You see, the oldest organization is forefront inserting, destroying the majority blacks, the same people whom they called our people when they are at podium, with big stomachs from stolen money. Moses Deben.
Good morning, Sis Kathy. Zoe, Cape Town, my sister. Sis Kathy, I just want to comment about Premier of the Eastern Cape, Mabuyana. Why this man, he wants to lead alone in the Eastern Cape? Why he cannot give others a chance to lead as well? Why? So I don't like what he's doing, really. He's the one that is cracking the ANC in the Eastern Cape. He's accusing other people now. I don't like what he's doing.
Morning, Mutlatlebo and SAFM listeners. This is Active Citizen in Polokwane. You know, I want to be very honest and frank with myself and the listeners that I don't think we still have got the ANC. You see, this issue of Senzo Mushunu is going to bury the ANC alive, if it is still alive. If it is dead, then it's fine. But if the ANC is still alive, they should know now that the issue of Senzo Mushunu is going to bury them alive. Yeah, I don't have much to say, but I'm done with the ANC as well. Thank you.
Morning, Kathy. I'm hearing in your bulletin now that the oil tanker that came from Russia is about to dock in Cuba, and Uncle Trump doesn't have a problem with that. I remember before this tanker left, Putin said that no one should try to stop this tanker. It's actually going to Cuba, and no one should stop it. And now Trump doesn't have a problem. After all these sanctions on Russia about them selling oil and trading with other countries. It's Reggie in Durban. Thank you.
Yeah. Morning, Kathy. It's Kelvin here in the Northern Cape. No, those people who said Mkhunu must not come back to work Mkhunu was not found guilty, either by the ANC or any other court. There are allegations against Mkhunu with regard to this issue of General Mkhwanazi. Yeah, leave the guy, man. He must come back to work. Let the guy go and campaign there in KwaZulu-Natal for the ANC. And then those who say that the ANC must die, unfortunately, the ANC is not going to die. We are here. If you don't want the ANC, don't come and tell us here the ANC must die. You don't want the ANC, fine. Go to other parties. Thanks, Kathy.
Good morning, Kathy. You're speaking to Stephen from Mpumalanga. Kathy, yesterday I've been in Maputo in one of the filling stations. The motorists were only allowed to fill 13 liters. Just imagine, 13 liters. What is crazy, what I've noticed is the motorists, they will fill that 13 liters. Then they'll drive around, then come again to take a queue and go in, because that filling station was not registering these motorists or these vehicles. Will come back and turn and fill another 13 liters. Just imagine. It was so hilarious. Thank you, Katie. This is Stephen from.
Good morning, Sis Katie and SFM listeners. One of your listeners last week on the guy Tula Sizwe's shows, he talk about the good boys and the bad boys. I think the African National Congress, they are just sending a clear message that umdlalo omuhle mawuqhubeke. This thing is just a game, The good boys and the bad boys, they are playing. Thank you. Have a great one. This is Mtu Nongoma Boy.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
SABC2 is bringing the heat. New shows, new faces, and stories that hit home like the one I'm in. It's called Pimville, and that's where you can catch me, Gege Mputi, every Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. sharp. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
This Human Rights Month, we commemorate a significant milestone, the Bill of Rights at 30, making human dignity real. For 3 decades, South Africa's constitution has been a beacon of equality, freedom, and justice for all. Yet dignity is not just written in our constitution, it must be lived, protected, and upheld every single day. Join SAFM as we unpack the issues that matter, elevate voices driving change, and reflect on the progress we've made while confronting the work that still lies ahead. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, 16 after 10 o'clock on the line. I'm joined by the former Premier of the Northwest Province, a governance practitioner and also scholar with extensive experience in government, Job Mokgoro. Mr. Mokgoro, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Kathy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Zuki Swakota is a steering committee member of the Global Open Government Partnership. Good morning, Zuki Swa.
Good morning, Kathleen. Thank you so much for having me.
So, I don't know if part of the challenge or the governance challenge that we're facing as a society and our seeming inability to break out of this cycle of corruption, the cycle of what can be seen as incapacity, a lack of ability to deliver, is necessarily complex, as in, is it a difficult problem to solve, or does it come out of the lack of will to solve it? Ntate Mokgoro, maybe you can begin by just giving us your own understanding of what the systemic challenges are that allow the repetition of these cycles that we see.
Yes, well, firstly, let me highlight, the weakness in institutions, such as oversight bodies that often lack independence or resources, making accountability inconsistent. And perhaps talking about accountability, the fact that we still operate within the legal framework where accountability is to the party and not to the people. Loyalty is valued over competence, leaving critical posts filled by political allies rather than skilled professionals. But we also see complexity in bureaucracy, where the maze of overlapping responsibility creates loopholes, and within these loopholes, corruption thrives. An example is in water delivery. You have all three spheres involved in one way or another in the delivery of water. And in addition to that, you also have water boards. And this creates untold complexity, who is responsible and accountable for whatever. Socioeconomic pressures, high unemployment and inequality tend to create incentives for rent-seeking and patronage politics. And perhaps also related to the question of values, we have since 1994 a culture of get rich quick. Some people call it a lotto mentality. And we see it in these corrupt cases that get revealed almost on a daily basis, where people use money that is meant largely for the historically marginalized to buy expensive cars, to build expensive houses, and so on and so forth. So a combination of these factors really go on to provide fertile ground for corruption.
There's a piece that you penned, Ntate Mokgoro, which I think is quite an important reflection for this conversation. And just on the issue of corruption, you describe procurement being slowed down by rent seeking, and that many honest managers who are in positions and who are within the pipeline, right? They make decisions around procurement. They hesitate to act because they don't want to be implicated in corrupt networks. But then what it does is that it freezes delivery. So in effect, what you're seeing is that, yes, there's wastage, right, and mismanagement of resources that needs to be dealt with on the one hand, but on the other, it's that money is not being spent. Budgets are not being spent on the projects they should be spent on, simply because people are afraid. Have I captured that correctly?
Yes, you're quite spot on. Well, firstly, I think the best thing that ever happened to a number of politicians, not all of them, is the fact that the responsibility for procurement is that of the accounting officer. But you see, here is the point. As a political principle, you appoint an accounting officer that would be complicit. In addition to the appropriate, quote unquote, accounting officer, you also appoint, by giving instructions to the accounting officer, to constitute a procurement committee that will be compliant. So many managers that have to make decisions about who to appoint get stuck. Do you appoint people who would be competent and ensure delivery happens? Or do you recommend appointment of service providers who, in terms of your understanding, are committed to the wishes of political principals and other senior managers? If, as a manager, you make a recommendation in respect of people who have skills, experience, and so on, do you not put yourself on the line at risk? Because that service provider, however competent he or she might be, the point is that is not consistent with the preferences of your principal. So this is one way in which that paralysis comes about. And the sad thing is, if you go the route of what you have been instructed or what you think would be the wishes of the political principals or your senior managers, when the Auditor General reports, you carry the can.
What do we need to be?
You have that approach avoidance situation. Yes, sorry.
What do we need to be doing to close the gap in that respect? Because, as you rightfully put it, it is these individuals who are acting on instruction that then often take the full responsibility, right, for why bad decisions have been made. But those that have issued the instruction, they not only remain in their positions, but in fact they move up the ranks, right? So whatever they were doing in one place, they'll continue to do elsewhere. And there's seemingly no paper trail often that directly implicates them, because that's how sophisticated they've become.
Well, let me give an example of myself. Almost every month when I was a premier, I was getting instructions to instruct MECs to make funds available for the governing party. I spent 3.5 years, almost every month I was getting that instruction. But thanks very much. At every turn, I said, over my dead body.
Who was giving you those instructions?
Well, those who were in authority politically.
Who are those in authority?
The party.
No, with all respect, Ntate Mkhoro, the party is not a name. The party doesn't...
well, those who were in control...
Yes, Luthuli House doesn't issue statements. There are individuals in Luthuli House that can send messages. The building itself can't send messages. So who are those people?
The person who was the CEO of the ANC in the province was continually giving me those instructions, and I consistently declined.
Who would you regard as the CEO? Because I'm not aware of the ANC having positions such as the CEO. They've got chairperson, and you know the rest that would follow. So what is the equivalent of a CEO for provincial structures?
It's the secretary, which is the equivalent of the CEO.
Why won't you name him?
Well, I don't want to do that.
Why not?
Yeah, well, I need to get my legal advisor to advise me accordingly, but I think I've said more than enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've said more than
enough.
Look,
I think what we'll do is that obviously you're leaving it up to us to connect the dots, and what you have shared is important, because you are saying that the secretary of the ANC in the Northwest, at the time that you were premier, would ask you to make funds available, to instruct MECs to make funds available. How was he hoping you would do this?
Well, I suppose he left it to me to give instructions to the MECs. He said it to be up to the MECs to do that. What I have noticed, just to give an example of how money would be diverted, a decision will be made to build a road. And the process of building the road would start. And suddenly you see that the process slows down or is halted. And when you inquire, one of the things that you discover is that, but at the same time, there is a conference that is happening. What is happening? And if you dig deeper, you find that, the money that was intended for road construction has actually been diverted to buy votes at this conference. This is just a practical example of what happens in this kind of diversion.
So, Mr. Mohoro, you are saying that under your watch as premier, these are the things that you would see. Now, the money that is diverted, is it money to companies that have been appointed for certain projects? And it is that those people in those companies know where that money is ultimately set to end up. How are you able to make that full connection? Because somebody else can say, no, but how do you know it ended up buying votes? How did you know it contributed to conference?
Well, in some instances, you would have people actually providing information and not wanting to be identified as the people who have provided the information. And in some instances, I would pull the information together. Where I can take action, I take action. Where it is a political issue, I refer it to Luthuli House. I've written letters to Luthuli House about some of these things, and today I'm still waiting.
Yeah, this is incredibly concerning, and I think obviously also quite an indictment on the ANC in the Northwest Province. We're going to continue with this conversation shortly. We're in conversation with the former Premier of the Northwest, Job Mohoro, and Zukiswa Kota is also part of this conversation. Zukiswa, we'll hear from you shortly.
Thank you, Kathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I'm Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Police are investigating the murders of a 30-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman who had been shot and killed in the COVID informal settlement in Bloemkombos and Kraaifontein. The High Court in Johannesburg has dismissed former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases inquiry matter, and the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union in KwaZulu-Natal has welcomed the reappointment of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as Provincial Police Commissioner. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 14 to the dollar, 22 rand 69 to the pound, and 19 rand 71 to the euro. Asian markets were mostly weaker at the close as hostilities in the Middle East entered their fifth week with no sign of easing. The JSE is mixed during mid-morning trade. European markets are also trading lower. Gold is trading at $4,517, platinum $1,912 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $116.36 a barrel.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point, and we are exploring the governance system and some of the fractures that take place that enable and allow corruption to take place. We've heard the allegations made by Job Mokgoro about how when he was premier, he would receive instructions from the secretary of the ANC in the province. He didn't want to name him, but we know that the secretary at that time would have been Tlhomane Chauke, who was the secretary from 2018 until 2022, that he would receive instructions for him to instruct MECs to make money available for the party. How do you make state money available for private institutions? There isn't a special account that is sitting with funds that have been ring-fenced for political parties. Not officially, at least. But the very instruction itself reveals so much, because there's no other word but looting. It is a looting of state resources for the benefit of a political party, as has been described. Zukiswa, let me firstly get your own analysis of what Mr. Mokgoro has shared before we take this conversation any further. Hello, Zukiswa.
Hi, Kathy. Sorry, you broke up there a bit.
There we go. So I was asking, please give me your reflections on what Mr. Mokgoro has said, and then we'll unpack part of where we are in the conversation after that.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. I think perhaps a really good starting point is perhaps the importance of understanding how systems actually work versus how systems are on paper. I won't pronounce on the machinations in the sense of a particular political party or any political party. Of course, they're all important in terms of governance as a whole. But I think what this reflects, and as you say, is really eye-opening, and we've seen a lot of eye-opening things come out about governance in the public, in the public service. What it really emphasizes is that in many instances, those of us who are outside of the system really do not know the half of what is actually going on inside. And I think in many cases, it is about shining the light on those systems, which is what we're seeing in the various inquiries and the various investigations, and then what's being poured out in the media and on social media platforms. So I think that's perhaps, for a member of the public and someone who's outside of governance systems, someone who's outside of the public service, as it were, whether it be a researcher or a citizen, that's really the scariest bit. We don't know what's happening in our law enforcement context. We don't know what's happening in public procurement systems. But we see firsthand the consequences of those systems being turned upside down.
The fact that you would have instructions from private actors, right, that filter into official governance and organizations that are set up with very specific mandates to deliver very specific services. But it almost seems like there's an override, right? When an instruction comes, it overrides even the mandate of those institutions. What do we need to do to stop that? Because surely the fact that it even happens signals incredible weakness on the part of these institutions too. It's no good having something that exists only in paper and having frameworks and structures that only exist in paper. But at any given point, those can be vetoed based on an instruction that is coming through and where that instruction is coming from.
Yeah, I think there's two elements to that, and I think my colleague on the panel is well placed to talk about the need to depoliticize, the public service and depoliticize public administration. And this is really what it speaks to. It's been encouraging to some extent to see what the white paper, for instance, on transforming local government is opening up and recognizing precisely how deeply embedded and entrenched these systems are, how easily patronage networks contribute or continue to contribute to these systems. But Kathy, I think there's a second layer to that, which is I think we often overlook what it means to strengthen public institutions, particularly those that should be providing oversight, whether we're talking about oversight over actual procurement or oversight of appointments and departments, across the spheres of government, or quite frankly, talking about, legislative oversight. All of those institutions also require adequate resourcing. When we did our reflection, this paper we wrote some time ago, looking at how underfunded anti-corruption institutions or democracy-supporting institutions were, it seems quite a long time ago, and it really wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, but really reflecting on what does it mean to put into effect South Africa's national anti-corruption strategy. Amongst those is precisely saying, how can we meaningfully equip those tasked with combating these systems within government? How can we meaningfully equip those who, whistleblowers, and protect and safeguard whistleblowers, for instance? All of those within a system, within this accountability ecosystem, cannot exist independently. We cannot depend on individuals to speak out or individuals who step out of the public service and are in positions to then speak up. So I think there are many layers to this. You asked a question earlier about complexity. You asked, is it that simple or is it quite complicated? I think by making systems opaque, by complicating systems that are already quite, so for instance, in the context of corruption, of procurement systems, procurement is already a very intimidating, complicated space that requires expertise. So we can speak openly, we can speak all the time about, how the tender system is flawed, how procurement systems are flawed in this country. But the other question is precisely that it serves certain systems of opacity and complexity seek to serve those that benefit the most. And so that's another element, is how do we open up, how do we destigmatize, how do we ensure transparency even in systems that are seen to be complicated, systems that are seen to be expert-driven. So without going on for too long, I think it is complicated on the one hand, but a significant component of it is opening up the system. Whether we talk about deepening open contracting, so open contracting principles say there should be a light shone and publication of contracting information from the beginning to the end, so full cycle openness. So all of those things matter, and we tend to undermine the importance not only of resourcing the system and resourcing those within it, but of shining a light and opening up, meaningfully creating transparency within public service systems.
Mr. Mokgoro, there's also an issue around our view of criminality and what we consider to be a crime. And part of why I'm bringing this up is that obviously, yes, when one receives an instruction of that nature, it is literally saying that there must be collusion between you and several parties, right, to commit a crime, because that's what corruption is. That's what looting of resources is. Yet one often doesn't get the sense that this is how the officials involved in the corruption often see it. And I just want to find out from you, given that you say there were instances that you noted these irregularities, that they were reported to you, and you took them up with the ANC. But in this country, we also have PRECA, which is anti-corruption legislation that Zukiswa was pointing to, criminalizing corruption, right, in both the public and private sectors. And it places a responsibility on those who are in authority to actually do something and to report any form of wrongdoing that they see when it comes to irregularities such as what you've detailed. So I want to know from you, when you were made aware of some of these instances and examples of corruption, what did you do about it?
Well, I had numerous engagements with law enforcement institutions, and like for instance the Hawks. I had meetings and engagement with them, and in some instances actions were taken. In other instances, one would wait and wait and wait. But when these things happened and you read in between lines, you realize, of course, you would not have the necessary evidence, but you realize or you suspect possible collusion between the individuals that are involved, as well as law enforcement agencies. It is no wonder that as we speak today, we have a Matlanga situation happening. It took one brave South African to expose this kind of thing. So certainly I would take the necessary action. But as I say, once you have done that, you have the responsibility and the authority to take the following steps, and it is up to the other institutions to take it further. How many times, just to give you another practical example, you get people saying, an institution such as the NPA would say, we have no reason to prosecute. These things happen.
In your trying to understand why several matters were looked into and why others weren't, what did you draw out of that?
Well, I think in this kind of system, and I think it is an obvious fact, their relationships. I often used to say, when I go to work, from morning until evening when I leave the office, I try by all means to comply with the Constitution. But when I return the following morning, I realize that based on certain developments that have happened, it looks like we do actually have two public sector institutions. There is one that functions in the day and strives to comply with the Constitution, but there is another one in the dark, in the evening, that operates. And make no mistake, don't undermine the strength and effectiveness of the one that operates extra constitutionally. It is just the reality of how the system operates.
So effectively then, this idea of having parallel structures of governance and of influence, but that have equal say in and I don't even think it's equal say, but where you have a parallel structure that has an inordinate amount of power to influence, right, what is the official structure. You are saying that is the reality that we're sitting with as a country, and it's happening at multiple levels than perhaps what we can see and what we allow ourselves to believe.
Yeah. That's the essence of what I'm saying.
How do we fix that? And I mean, if I look at a province like the Northwest, there have been contestations for power even within the ANC, right? Where there have been different factions of the ANC contesting for leadership in that province. So how do we begin to deal with the problem? Because the assumption then to make is that this problem probably consists across party levels, that it is not unique only to the ANC, given the fact that we also have municipalities that are governed by multiple parties, but still face the same problems.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you pick it up from the language. I remember in the early days of our democracy, one person came to me and said, "Oh, Brajob, I got this huge tender, and incidentally, the ANC." Person clearly telling you that this is how I got it. Sometimes, because you kowtow to those in the party hierarchy, you're able to advance in life. I think that is no rocket science. It happens on a daily basis. Perhaps it could be attributed to our electoral system, where in your position, it is very clear to you that you account to the party, and your ascendancy is determined not the extent to which you deliver and are accountable in terms of your mandate to those who are supposed to benefit from services, but to those who have authority to determine your advancement. And I think that would be one outcome of accountability to the party rather than accountability to those who are entitled to services.
I'll be taking your calls and contributions for this conversation on 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. That's 0614 104 107. Zukiswa, you touched on depoliticizing governance. And sometimes when one looks at the situation, it feels like we are almost too far gone, because how the system is set up. So the person who issues an instruction to a premier is expecting loyalty, right? That's what they're leveraging on. When the premier issues an instruction to the MEC, they expect the same. And that, of course, then translates to whoever receives messages from whichever department that will then also execute accordingly. And so that's why we have individuals that are placed in certain positions strategically so. In what ways do we begin to change it so that it's not so easy for the collusion to take place?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Perhaps the simplest answer to it, and many have said this, is actually to just wipe the slate clean, to have an overhaul of not only the municipal, the local government system, but more broadly. We do see, of course, that a lot of this sits at the local government level. So it isn't exaggerating to say that there is a need to go beyond transforming bits and pieces of the system and really consider a deep overhaul in order to ensure that there's a greater focus on merit, on administrative independence, on the separation of powers between political heads, on exactly the things that you've raised, Kathy. The fear really is that without this deep-set overhaul sort of reform, all that will happen is a mere decision, regardless of which political party steps into the fray, regardless of whether or not it's a coalition or coalition government context. And perhaps that really is the systematic thing or the systemic challenge that we're faced with and has been the case over many years. And so strengthening the systems and integrating communities, for instance, into local government in particular, can only happen in a system that does see the sorts of overhauls that are being suggested by many civic actors and many within government, in fact, as well as Salgo, who have also made some very interesting proposals around the need to overhaul the system in alignment with the white paper and local government.
Butana, you're in Rosebank. Good morning.
Good morning, my sister. Good morning to your guests. You know, the project of nepotism and project of corruption is an ANC project. They drive it with zeal. You know, when they were busy preparing for their conferences, they were clipped in their conference preparation for their conference when they were talking to your members, saying, by the way, you don't qualify for the positions. You must say thank you to the ANC. Otherwise, if you are going to compete with other South Africans, you're not going to make it. So that is the how can you forget the deployment committee, deploying crooks and thieves? Dr. Mukoro knows it very well. I'm happy that he is liberated and he's talking the truth. But it's a half-truth, Dr. Mukoro. The ANC has collapsed South Africa. It's painful to us. But it's not going to help us. Let's talk about it. By the way, DA doesn't have a problem with the corrupt ANC. They are happy to work with the corrupt ANC. We just have to liberate ourselves from these crooks and thieves. They've collapsed our country. We are laughing stock in the whole world. Check the municipalities, check the cities, check the crooks that they put in cities there, and thieves. And the next thing you're going to tell us that we have to professionalize them. How do you professionalize thieves and crooks? How do you do that?
And I think
there's nothing else that they have to.
I was saying, Butana, that, and I think in all honesty, this is above just professionalization, because even a professional person who has a greater sense of loyalty than doing their job will still do the same thing.
Well, they come to us with that professionalize. Yet the crooks are entrenched there. How do you professionalize those things? You have to root them out. If you're serious, you're not serious, ANC. You're just lip service. Anytime when they've got the local government election, they'll be talking nice. Yeah.
Okay.
And promise after promise, empty promise. We are tired of those things.
Okay, Butana, let's leave it there. Dumile, good morning to you.
Good morning, Katie. You know, I would, and your guest, I would say it would be difficult to say we must distance ourselves from the ANC as black people, because if we are honest, we are the ANC, because ANC is mainly a black organization and it's one of the oldest. But I think to take on your point that it can't only be about professionalism. I think if we have to zoom into the issue, I think what we are suffering from, Tina, we are suffering from a proper spirit that should carry us forward, because every action is guided by a spirit. It could be a spirit of fear, but there's always an energy of influence. It's either a lack of fear or ego or hate or vindictiveness, or it could be a spirit of pride and self-love. You know? And I think, considering where we come from in terms of apartheid, we have not admitted or even taken a point of saying we must debrief ourselves from the war that we went through, because our war was difficult. It was physical, spiritual, psychological, and otherwise. The guys we were fighting with, we were running the apartheid state. Some of them were doctors in psychology. So the way they were running the state, it was psychological. And when they released the black people in 94, they claimed to have released them. But they released only the people who were coming from the forest and jails to run the state. The black state in South Africa already had people who were working as professionals, but those people were never qualified to run the state. So the consideration was to politicians who actually never had an experience of running anything. So those people come with a spirit of desperation because they don't have a spirit of creation. So they come as survivalists. Now, if you are a survivalist, there are many things that you think about. You are not in your right senses. You are not yourself. So we can't blame these guys really per se, but we should blame the system because I can tell you now, even if you were to remove the ANC, put another new set of black people there, if they don't have the right spirit that should carry their actions forward, meaning the spirit of self-love, not self-hate, like the spirit of pride, and to have the spirit of wanting to create but not to be survivalist, then we will never go anywhere. In this country, we have everything, but we have not created even a car. We are running out of fuel reserves. How will that happen? You see, that's just a mess.
Okay, Dumile, thanks for that contribution. Mike, you're in Middleburg. Good morning.
Morning, Kathy. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, Kathy, it's good that the doctor came forward actually to talk about this thing. What I can tell you, Kathy, is that it is not exclusive to him. I can attest myself that I received such calls more than I care to remember, and I defied all of them. Hence, I was recalled, later. It takes courage, it takes being principled to stick to what you stand for. Otherwise, you will be instructed left, right, and center. You will get a call from the chairperson of the region, the secretary, the treasurer, all of them. They will instruct you that you must assist them. They need resources. And they will even tell you that there is a project, so and so. Make it a point that one of us, win that project so that you can assist the organization in terms of resources. So, definitely we need a complete overhaul, as one of your guests indicated, Kathy. Otherwise, if things are left as they are, I'm afraid. And I don't agree with the previous caller that people who are fighting in forest, in the bush, therefore you justify what is happening. Otherwise, if you were liberating people, from oppression, you must be honest. You must allow people to access resources so that you can improve their lives. You don't, approve stealing and say people are from the bush or from forest. No.
Okay, Mike in Middleburg, we'll leave it there. Thank you all for your contributions to this conversation. I do think that it's one of those that we will have to find a way of following up on, because it truly is an indictment, not only on the systems that we have and how they fail when we need them the most, but I think also on political organizations. Political parties must come and account, and they must come and tell us, what have they done when these issues have been raised, and why, if they have not done anything, would they enable and facilitate this kind of culture? Because that is what is destroying the very essence of what we are as a nation. It's 11 o'clock, time for your latest news.
Thank you, Kathy. On the top stories, Western Cape police investigate murders of 2 people in Kraaifontein, and Bob welcomes reappointment of Mkhwanazi. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. Police are investigating the murders of a 30-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman who had been shot and killed in the COVID informal settlement in Bloekombos in Kraaifontein. Police spokesperson Wesley Trigg says police found the 2 victims with gunshot wounds to their heads. He says they were declared dead on the scene.
Police members were called to the crime scene where they found the victims with gunshot wounds to their heads. Both victims were declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel. The motive for the attack is yet to be determined. The suspects fled the scene and are yet to be arrested.
One person has been killed and another injured in a crash involving two trucks before the Belleville off-ramp on the N7 in Durban. It's believed one of the trucks crashed into the rear of another truck which had broken down on the highway. An occupant in the back of one of the trucks was declared dead at the scene while a truck driver was injured. The M7 was closed to traffic for some time while emergency workers worked to clear the scene. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamieson.
On the M7 Durban bound before the Belleville Road off-ramp in the Melbourne area west of Durban. At this stage, I can confirm that one person has suffered fatal injuries and has been declared deceased on the scene by paramedics, and multiple others are being attended to on the scene. There has been some secondary collisions as well in the traffic, and I'd advise motorists to avoid this area at all costs as the entire M7 Durban bound has been closed at the moment. Closure is unknown how long it will actually take for emergency personnel to clear up the scene, but due to a fatality, I would recommend people avoid using this area at all costs.
The High Court in Johannesburg has dismissed former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases inquiry matter. The two had approached the court seeking the removal of retired Justice Sisi Khabembe from the inquiry, with Mbeki also asking for actions already taken by the commission to be set aside. The court found that their failure to follow the correct legal process rendered the application invalid. Zuma and Mbeki have also been ordered to pay legal costs. The Police and Prison Civil Rights Union, POPCRU, in KwaZulu-Natal has welcomed the reappointment of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as Provincial Police Commissioner. POPCRU says the move comes at a crucial time as the province battles high levels of violent crime and organized crime networks. POPCRU KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Secretary is Ntabeleng Mulefe.
As POPCRU in KZN, we welcome his reappointment for another term, because this is going to make sure that there is continuity and stability in the province in the fight against crime. This is not only about the general, but the strategies that he has put in place that are working in crime prevention. Our members have drawn strength and belief from his support in execution of their constitutional obligations. His leadership style inspired confidence to the community of KZN for the work that the police officers are doing.
The new parliament in Myanmar is meeting today to elect a president. The parliament is dominated by the military after a general election from which most opposition parties were excluded. It's almost certain to choose General Min Aung Hlaing, who led the military coup 5 years ago, to be president. The BBC's Jonathan Head has the details.
Few doubt that the coup leader will get the job. There are trade-offs, though. The Constitution requires him as president to give up command of the military, where there are potential rivals who are critical of Min Aung Hlaing's handling of the civil war ignited by his coup. He's already created a new consultative council which could continue to give him control of both civilian and military affairs. What is not in doubt is that the new administration will essentially be just an expanded version of the current military junta. There's been no indication that he will end the violent suppression of those who oppose his seizure of power from the elected government led by Aung San Suu Kyi.
Recapping the top story, police are investigating the murders of a 30-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman who had been shot and killed in the COVID informal settlement in Bloemfontein in Gryfontein. I'm on Dilambara for SFM News headlines at 11:30.
It's a space where generations come together in conversation that seek to spark curiosity, inspire innovation, and feed the curious mind. For arts, culture, and robust conversations, join me every weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga as we explore the stories, lessons, and conversations that guide us back to self.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
This is Kathy. You can improve and have all the best systems in the world, but I feel corruption is a human behavior that is fueled by morals, values, and ethics. Having people with the right ethics, values, and morals allows any system to thrive, right? I think as people, if we can stick to always wanting to do the right thing, regardless of the consequences, always wanting to do the right thing, we could almost get rid of corruption. Because each and every system will always be open to manipulation because it's human operated. But if we have the right morals, values, and ethics, I think we always do the right thing, no matter what. Thank you. It's important for you.
Good morning, Kathy. The problem here is that officials in government, particularly the politicians, the MECs and some such, never understood. Not that they didn't understand, they were ignorant of the fact that the party is not the state. That the fact that the ANC is the leading party in government doesn't mean that it is the government. And it was because of that blurred understanding of state of affairs that top officials would be pressured to use government funds to fund party activities. That is why you had assassinations of top officials who refused to take such instructions. This happened in the Free State. This happened in Mpumalanga. That ignorance of the differentiation between party and state. Debbie, thanks.
Simple question, Mr. Mokgoro. What did he do? Did you open a case against individuals involved? Don't tell us about discussions you had with the law enforcement. The law doesn't say if you suspect or you have a knowledge of corruption taking place, go and have discussions with law enforcement. The law says report it, open a case. That's the problem we have with these kind of leaders. Now that he's not part of that leadership there, he's now trying to wash his hands of all the debt that's been going on there.
We always knew, Katie, that these things are happening, that the political parties are stealing money. Look at the water. When the water just vanish, there will be problems about water in the whole Gauteng. And these people will squash money by using these water tankers. But these water tankers, they won't be available in those areas. You will be looking for these water tankers, but they won't be available. And that money will be sent to that person. And so we are doomed, Katie. Case in Kahas.
Good morning, Kefi and SAFM listeners. It's Marco Masekwe here in Energy. You know, Kefi, listening to Dr. Mokgoro, I'm depressed, man. You know, the way the ruling party is dealing with the affairs of our provinces and our nation, it's worrisome. Really, really worrisome, because they don't follow the book. They follow their minds. If they so wish to do anything, they can dictate to anyone that they've placed in power. It is very clear that those who are in power, they are just installed there to be told what to do. It's very painful, Kefi.
Morning, Sis Kathy, and happy Papalas Day to all the SAFM listeners. Sis Kathy, the system of our governance is rotten to the core. In fact, Fikile Mbalula has admitted that as the ruling party, they make sure that the people they put in those positions of governance are the loyal people of the ANC. They are deploying the comrades, so they can't leave their governance unto people they can't trust. So as long as we keep on putting deployees, the comrades, on those vital positions, we are going nowhere. That's Toro Dlagamanta looks Siyokoichi culture. Tango will remain humble Mapagani.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
You can become a victim of a legal problem.
wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Apply.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Our final conversation of the day, welcome to the final hour of the show. It's 12 after 11. Is going to look at climate change, and in particular in urban areas. And it's not really in the form that one would traditionally expect or anticipate. So it's not by way of floods that, extreme flooding events or extreme weather events that are easy to point to as a signal of the changing climate. It does, however, have to do with what we experience on a day-to-day basis and the way in which our cities are set up that has an impact on how different areas in the city experience the effects of climate change. So if you think about suburbs, in particular your more affluent suburbs, you'll find that there are trees, jacaranda trees, and all sorts of other trees that line the streets of the suburbs. Now, what you might not know about those trees is that they play a critical role in managing the temperature of the environment and the temperature of those areas. The inverse effect is that in areas such as your Mitchell's Plain, your Khayelitsha, and others, where there are no trees, residents there are experiencing higher effects of climate change. Joining us is Amanda Qanga, who is with WNRI Cities Program, which is the Cool Labs Cities, and she is leading the program in South Africa, and she's here to talk to us about City Cool Labs, or Cool Cities Lab. Apologies. Amanda, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Morning, and thank you for having WRI today.
And WRI stands for World Resources Institute, Ross Center for Sustainable Cities. So, Amanda, in South Africa, I think we've gotten used to the landscape, right? We've gotten used to how geographically our cities are positioned. Often when we think about suburbs and your township or your even informal areas, we think that the differences in those areas begins and ends with service delivery, that one area has access to greater services than another. But of course, what you are bringing up through the Cool Cities Labs is that the impact goes far deeper than that. Speak to us a bit more about this issue.
And that's precisely the point, because when we think about service delivery, one traditionally thinks about water, one thinks about housing, one thinks about health, and these are all portfolios that have departments, that have mandates. When we think about service delivery, we don't often think about heat, and so it remains an invisible and yet very much felt threat. When you were talking about, how cities are set up, where you have if you look at Johannesburg has one of the world's largest man-made forests. Urban forest, which is mostly in the north of the city, was built as early as the late 1890s. For a period of 100 years, there was an intense program towards greening Johannesburg. And the history towards that was to manage the dust that was coming from the mining industry. And so that's why you have in the north of Joburg what we call the parks, so your Krakow parks, your park towns. And you don't only have street trees, but the number of parks available to the citizens, which are in the north, is more compared to if you are in Alexandra, in Soweto, in Tembisa, in terms of access to these green public spaces. And so one is seeing the disparity and the inequality, not just in traditional service delivery, but in how citizens are moving around and experiencing heat, stress, and shock simply because of the development of green spaces and cooling infrastructure within our cities.
Why is it so important that we have trees everywhere? What role do they play? And again, if you just think about how the infrastructure is set up, of course, in suburbs, you'll have streets and everybody has their yard that is clearly demarcated. You have that in townships as well. But where the living becomes more informal, there isn't quite that sense. So you don't have a yard. Literally your neighbor's shack could be starting right next to yours. Why is that an important factor? Why and how does it contribute to climate change and how people are experiencing climate?
So on average, trees, depending on their canopy, so how much shade they produce, how big they are, they can reduce the thermal temperature, so how you experience heat, from between 5 to 10 degrees. So we're saying that in neighborhoods that have trees, or we all know this, when you're walking down a street that's shaded, there's a sense of comfort that you will not feel if you are walking in a street that is, we call them brown streets or brown neighborhoods. But most of us haven't been exposed to quantifying in terms of what that reduction in temperature is. We just know we feel cooler. And so in a neighborhood that does not have the green infrastructure, they are on an average experiencing 10 degrees temperatures higher compared to someone who is in a cooler neighborhood. Now, you touched on a very important fact that, especially in townships, land is valuable. And so it's valuable, but also it's limited. So if you have your own house and you have a limited space at the back, are you going to put green infrastructure, or are you going to put a back room that you can rent it out for additional income? But also the size of households in our townships are generally larger than, in your more affluent families, where you will have on average 3 to 4. And so space becomes very, it's limited, it's in demand. And so there's also a cultural exercise that needs to take place around why, greening should be encouraged at household level, but also with municipalities greening, particularly what we call walkable networks. So not every street can be greened, but we know based on where taxis pick up people, where buses pick up people, where people walk to school, those we call the key primary walkable networks that should be prioritized for green infrastructure.
Sure. As you're speaking, Amanda, there's so many different light bulbs that are going on in my head, because I'm thinking about just what you've... If somebody stays in a house where the roofing is made out of corrugated iron, it of course retains a lot more heat. Now, if it's just the entire infrastructure that is made out of corrugated iron, it gets even worse, right? And the ventilation becomes an issue. But then that also has its own effect on the health of the people in that household. And the fact that it just comes down to not having enough trees in the environment. And you look at South Africa. So there's a certain way of people that a significant portion of our population, a certain way of living that people are being subjected to just by virtue of not having trees. And that could be, impacted by a decision that says we're going to green more of our country.
So when we looked at the mapping, we found that the heat risks is mostly felt in informal settlements for some of the reasons that you've mentioned. But also these are the people, when you look at their employment or job setups, it's people who have maybe day-to-day jobs, it's people with piece jobs, it's people who don't have the luxury of putting in a sick leave and still getting paid. And so what you're finding is that, for example, if you are a security guard working at night or you have a night shift and you go home in the morning and you're supposed to sleep and rest, but it's so hot you can't sleep. You can't even go outside to a shaded area for resting. So we're finding that, people like that end up experiencing migraines. But now there's another layer of vulnerability is you then start to look at within informal settlements, within our townships, how many clinics do we have? How accessible are they? So that's like a double effect. And then also there's the loss of household income because you're losing a day of being productive and you're not going to be paid for that, that day. So our latest research is now trying to make linkages between how vulnerable communities be, children missing school, productive adults missing work, elders getting more and more sick, especially now if you're looking within neighborhoods or populations where there are other diseases like your TB, your HIV, other chronic diseases. How are they impacted by heat? So we're trying to now link to the economic production of a household as well as the health in terms of is government anticipated to spend more or have a higher budget as our cities are increasingly exposed to heat risks. And besides infrastructure, green infrastructure, what other technologies or solutions can be implemented? You'll find, for example, that a municipality is less willing to invest on infrastructure not in a township, in an informal settlement, because there's land tenure issues there. So can, people living, for example, in informal settlements be encouraged to use cooling paints that reflect heat? Can they be encouraged to put, especially narrow streets, some of the shades that we are seeing, artificial shades we're seeing in European cities where, they've got, those old cities that you can't really change the infrastructure because of the historical or heritage status that they have. So what other solutions are available to us besides or beyond green infrastructure? And that's what we play around as well for African cities.
I'm thinking about the approach sort of being two-pronged. Of course, we need an approach at a governance level that says, how do we change the situation, right? Because clearly it's not just a nice to have. It's not just about enjoying, the views of the jacaranda lined, streets of the parks, but it's to say that there is real intention and purpose in setting up this green infrastructure, as you put it, in communities. And so on one hand, there's what must be the response to it at a governance level. The other is that what can we as individuals do to also help improve the situation? What is within our power to do that will make a difference?
Yeah. So particularly in South Africa, and in metropolitan areas, because the government on its own really takes seriously climate change and impacts and how they should be adapting. So, for instance, cities like Johannesburg, eThekwini, Tshwane, they've got the climate action plans. And so their climate action plans would look at how do we sustainably manage waste, how do we, move towards greener energy, but also how are we dealing with flooding and heat. If you look at Johannesburg, for example, Johannesburg has a big program towards bridging the green divide. So they've started projects far back around greening Soweto, and now Soweto has some of the biggest flagship parks in Johannesburg. And those were all products or projects that were aiming at a broader societal level to bridge the green divide. They've also prioritized neighborhoods like Alexandra and thinking creatively around, well, the streets are narrow and there's already existing infrastructure underground, which, trees might not fit in perfectly with. So what are the other solutions? So the parks, for example, along the river, restoring the river and corridor and keeping that river and corridor, but also as a park for people to, access and have, cooling infrastructure. Same as in Cape Town, we worked with them in mapping their walkable network in the CBD. Now, Cape Town, their old CBD remains one of the most walkable and busy CBDs. So they're interested in understanding, when people leave, there are central, stations, which is the trains, underneath the taxis at the top, and then on the right is the bus stations. Where are people walking to? And how are they exposed to heat, especially in the afternoon when they come back from work? So they're prioritizing tree planting, cool roofs, and paints that will cool the temperature as citizens are walking up and down those hot spots.
Amanda, before I let you go, where can people go to access this information? Because it truly is so insightful, and I think that there will be many South Africans who would want to be empowered with knowledge to know, well, while I wait, to figure out or to find out what my own municipality or region's plan is in terms of climate change, what can I start doing to improve the situation?
Yep. So the Cool Cities Lab platform is on our website, World Resources Institute. So if you just search WRI Cool Cities Lab, it should be accessible. And also it's an app that one can play around. You can find your neighborhood. In South Africa, we've worked with 3 cities, Cape Town, Johannesburg, and eThekwini. But because Tshwane is so close to Johannesburg, so residents of Tshwane will also get to see their neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. You are able to, even like select your street, your neighborhood, and kind of like get a sense of what's happening there and play around with solutions. Okay. But we also work very closely with those governments. One of the activities that we'll be doing is building capacity with ward councillors as well, especially post-elections, because more and more communities are starting to ask questions around heat. What can government do? Councillors also have been engaging, especially the climate change officials around, how they manage heat stress in their communities.
Amanda, we're going to have to leave it there for this morning. Amanda Ganga is the WRI Cities Program Lead in South Africa. Go online and do find that app, because I think the information that you'll have there will be very, very insightful. And if you feel like you feel the heat a lot more than others, you may actually not be wrong. It's time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Kathy. On the news headlines, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Nkosini Tlhabisa has gazetted initiation school fees across all provinces with costs varying widely. Police are investigating the murders of a 30-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman who had been shot and killed in the COVID informal settlement in Bloekombos in Kraaifontein. And the Israeli military says it's been carrying out new waves of attacks across Tehran. Earlier, there were reports of widespread power cuts near the Iranian capital and in nearby cities. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Berea, the home of the four bespectacled Tisson brothers, all of whom work or have worked on the English service, particularly Audio Mix and Radio Today. Watch how the night proceeds towards dawn.
And
I need a lot of consoling when I started the early program. People couldn't believe that John O'Donnell and B. Reid were chosen for the early morning program, because if ever two announcers used to want to swap a morning shift for an afternoon shift, John and I would do it.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, you're listening to The Talking Point. Yeah, I'm still processing some of the information that Amanda was sharing with us before we went to the news headlines. I think there's so much that we can all unpack from that information, and just the difference that having greenery in an area makes to the overall living and life experience of the people in that area. It seems like it's something that's insignificant, but it's not. But it's not. If you've ever lived in a township or even an informal settlement, or you've been to an informal settlement, you can tell. You know exactly what Amanda's talking about. But the fact that that can be reduced to one thing, such as planting trees, it'll make such a big difference in so many people's lives. Because people it's hard to be in a shack during the day when it's so hot. It's hard to be in a house that is, roofed with corrugated iron when it's hot, simply because it retains so much heat. So we need to be bringing more of these solutions and making them accessible more broadly. All right, we're going to get into our book reading for the day. Today we're continuing with the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude.
Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude, read by Vuyokazi Tebe.
False dichotomies. Like all new CEOs, David did a cabinet reshuffle, reviewing and tweaking the top team to best suit his vision and strategy for the company's future. Handing strategy to David as CEO, I remained Executive Director of HR, where Sasol's Values and Culture Change program was anchored. Additionally, I took on corporate affairs, risk, safety, and health and environment. I was happy because my new diversified portfolio brought me so much closer to operations, and with these changes, I also became Executive Vice President. As mentioned, I'd been keen to work more closely with operations for quite some time, and over the years, I'd got involved with all of Sasol's different business units in various ways. First, as the head of group strategy and HR, I'd been involved in each business unit's individual strategy as well as its global HR issues. Second, like all executive directors and group exco members, I served as a director on the boards of about 6 different business units, including Sasol Mining. Early in 2010, I became the chairman of Sasol Mining's board. As a business of scale whose growth was important to the company, mining was one of the country's key transformation areas and therefore of particular interest to me. As chairman, I sat in on weekly operations meetings and worked closely with the mining executive, Rian Rademan, a passionate miner who worked in the sector for over 25 years. Rian taught me that running a successful mining business was as much about understanding people as it is about the technical mining process. That is, the ability to create a productive environment relied on clear and positive communications with your workforce. As I worked with the business teams in my new portfolio areas of risk, safety, and health and environment, what became increasingly clear to me was that positive and clear communication was at the heart of everything. From having a great record, be it in safety, health, or the environment, to general risk management, Sasol's successful operations relied on a healthy organizational culture as much as they did on our people's technical competence. The closer I got to operations, the more I realized was in many ways a continuation of the work I had been doing, integrating the values and culture and behavior changes into the organization so that these qualities could continue to underpin operational excellence. Something I had long suspected was confirmed, that culture, people, and values are the heart of every successful business. Although I did not carry line responsibility for the profit and loss of the business units I headed, the exposure I got to operations through my new portfolio satisfied the need I once had to tick that box. Earlier in my career, I'd seen how working in operations accelerated people's career trajectories and had wished to be more directly involved in ops. But having got to the top of the organization without that experience, and now being involved at the group level in the operations of a massive global manufacturing and energy company, I realized I'd scratched this itch and then some. As Pat and David both put it can't get better than this portfolio. What else would you want to do that you haven't done? On reflection, I think part of my desire to get into operations had been to see the view from the other side of the fence that seemingly separated hard and soft business issues. When you'd say, we've run 800 workshops and culture change, or we've touched the lives of 5,000 leaders in the organization, it sounded great, but someone always pointed to the bottom line, asking, yes, but did we sell more or fewer nuts and bolts? I understood the tangible appeal of operations. If someone says she's produced 1,000 nuts and bolts, there's no arguing with that. You either produced 1,000 or fewer or more. However, what I came to learn from working in operations was that the hard or soft dichotomy was a false distinction. Reflecting on the challenges we faced in functions, where your job is figuring out how the company will produce those 1,000 nuts and bolts, ensuring that all the necessary supporting machinery is running smoothly and the right people show up every day and are willing to work together, I realized with complete clarity that operations and functions are two sides of the same coin. Without the one, the other may as well not exist. As much as I understood the desire to measure success or impact in quantifiable terms, the perspective I gained from operations gave me even a deeper appreciation for the unquantifiable yet very real value of the how. This is where culture's impact on performance, a topic I find endlessly fascinating, comes in. One of the ultimate goals in organizational transformation is to integrate culture change and performance to the point where people recognize that it is because of your change to culture and how it has affected the way you do things, including engaging with customers and stakeholders that you now sell more nuts and bolts than you would have done had you continued doing things the old way. That has been the journey over the years, and that is also part of why I wanted direct involvement in operations, so I could experience things from the performance side. But the barrier separating hard and soft business elements is actually disappearing as future business sustainability is increasingly seen as dependent on the how and the value that resides there. For example, at Sasol, we're able to demonstrate that when engaging with government departments or communities, licensing or permitting, the end result often had more to do with questions of culture than it did with how meticulously you completed a form. I directly experienced instances where particular government inspectors came and somehow found everything wrong with our application. Examining the result, you'd see that the inspector had focused on seemingly petty issues that could have just as easily been bypassed or corrected. Digging deeper about how the conversation with the inspector had gone, you'd then find that our people had behaved poorly, perhaps with arrogance or a lack of respect. Someone called it the traffic police test, how politely taking responsibility, rather than impatiently denying your offense, is the best way to walk away with a friendly warning rather than a fine. In other words, underlying issues around attitude can thwart you, and that comes down to culture. Simply put, cultures of respect, courtesy, and professionalism yield constructive conversations and greater productivity. When I came to Sasol in 2005, I found a strong organization that was performing and doing well. Thanks to our culture change, Sasol now performs even better. How do we know this? It would be disingenuous for me to point to increased revenue or growth figures and claim they are all a direct result of our culture change. But while it is true that Sasol has grown, the most significant indicator of our success is that our employees are happier to be there. Our culture change at Sasol was not just about getting more Black people or women in the organization. It was about opening the organization up to create a more respectful and humanizing environment. Examples such as our partnership forum, where management and unions can speak freely and openly, led to employees feeling their views were accepted and welcome. As a result, they made suggestions that helped improve productivity and prevented safety incidents across various business units. On a larger scale, labor unrest reduced across the organization, saving weeks or even months of lost workdays. At the heart of this kind of change were the values demonstrated by the employees, including management, and a behavior change that gave employees a sense of belonging and ownership over what was taking place in the company. In this way, culture change was also fundamental to changing attitudes towards safety and employee wellness. Putting safety first and talking about the culture of safety led to fewer safety incidents for the company, which again increased productivity. Employee wellness became not only about preventing harm in the workplace, but also about nurturing the sense among our employees that they were valued as contributors. That value in turn unlocks potential, causing team members to contribute more than they would in a culture that does not recognize them as innovators or voices deserving to be heard.
There was another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. The book is available online and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. The book is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. Technical production, Wiseman Manwele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuru. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SFM presents another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude, read by Vuyokazi Tebe.
We know we have achieved these things because people aspire to work for our company. We see that our employee value proposition is high because when we talk to graduates in the industry, they want to work for Sasol because our brand has a good reputation and our leaders are known to be visionary. Knowing that your leaders do things with a sense of a higher purpose, that your employees are good ambassadors because they experience your culture positively, and that your company is at the top of the best young graduates wish list. These are things by which a company's success must also be measured. The next challenge. In 2014, when after 5 years as CEO, David advised the board that he would not renew his contract, I had to consider my own next move. By that point, I could say we had delivered the culture change shift that had been required. Sasol had gone from being a business people were not relating to as a South African entity to one of the country's most admired companies. It went from being a place where 100% of its top leadership was white and male to one where 30% of our top 100 leaders were women and or black. The organization had moved from having a white CEO to having a black CEO in Bongani Mwababa, albeit joint CEO and president. Indeed, Sasol had become a truly great and committed corporate citizen and a role model in terms of demonstrating how a large organization could embrace transformation in a growing economy. At Sasol, I had been given the opportunity to increase the scale, diversity, and depth of what I could handle as a leader. I had also had the rare privilege of being surrounded by people with the best qualifications and experience that money could buy in industry, and had almost come to take for granted the tremendous resources at my disposal to be the best I could be. In that extraordinary space, I'd honed a leadership style that was anchored in values, integrity, and principles, and always considered the bigger picture. As a leader, I fundamentally acknowledged that I often did not know everything about an issue, and thus always endeavored to bring other people's perspectives on board. Something that was facilitated by the fact that I had surrounded myself with brilliant and talented people who challenged me intellectually at whatever level they operated in the organization. I considered my Sasol years the culmination of everything I had done and experienced until then. Professionally, socially, and spiritually, every experience I had had since being a child in my mother's shop had come together here. In retrospect, it felt like all those other experiences served as rehearsals for this big part in what had finally been the real show. However, after 11 years and all the changes we had made and the impact I believe I had, it was the logical time for me to take a bow. A tribute by Imogen Kize. On the occasion of the annual Chairman's Dinner on the 23rd of November 2016, where the board and the executive management were bidding farewell to David Constable and myself, I was deeply touched by the words Imogen Kize, non-executive director of Sasol, had to say about my time there. When we think of authentic leadership, leadership not born out of a position of authority, when we consider practical leadership, which helps individuals and organizations adapt and thrive in challenging environments, leadership that resonates with meaningful and positive change, and indeed, leadership that is anchored in emotional intelligence, humility, and genuine kindness. It is often hard to find all of these desirable traits in one individual. But here at Sasol, we've had the privilege to witness this kind of leadership in action. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we celebrate and honor Miss Nolita Fakute. Without a doubt, Miss Fakute has the character, the skill, and courage of a truly authentic leader. With her genuine attention to people development, she has been a catalyst that has consistently mobilized and collaborated positive change in this organization since her arrival in 2005 as the first woman executive director of Sasol in its entire history. When Nolita came to Sasol, she already had a history of a successful career. Since her Black Management Forum days, her life was about the development of people and the meaningful transformation of organization. It was a life filled with learnings and activities that enabled her to lead and inspire people. Over the last 7 years, Nolita has been relentless in bringing the Sasol values to life. Her commitment in keeping the company's moral code at the forefront of everyone's mind has been evident in all our engagements with her. In general, Nolita's whole orientation and natural inclination often remind us that the key values of safety, people, integrity, and accountability are not essential, but they can shift a culture and make a sustainable difference. Thank you. Driven by respect, trust, collaboration, and teamwork, Nolita has been the force that has guided this organization through some of the challenges and obstacles that were enormous, not least of which was the global financial crisis, a mere 3 years into her tenure. She has been part of a few other transitions at Sasol, and I'm certain that some of them required her to move beyond her comfort zones, but she certainly measured up. Among her colleagues, she has been the trusted advisor, a skilled executor, and she has helped transform this organization, not just from an empowerment point of view, but also from a business point of view. I dare say one of Nolita's greatest attributes is that she does not often come from a place where she has all the answers. Because when you do, there's never an opportunity for anybody else to express themselves. Nolita is blessed with that subtle perception to inquire and seek understanding, which helps her mobilize and co-create without reaching conclusions on her own. People often respond very positively to that personality trait. It empowers and builds confidence in people. As we open ourselves for growth, we also enable those around us to grow. Nolita, your tireless efforts in your beliefs, your keen judgment, and sheer humanism, the passion that you have to do what is right, have been an incredible asset to this organization. Your indomitable commitment and purposeful work ethic has helped Sasol meet the challenges of a demanding era. As I was preparing these remarks, I spoke to a few people who echoed the sentiments. The present and past CEOs and the chairpersons you have served under, they all hold you in very high esteem. It is also evident that you enjoy considerable credibility and respect from your colleagues on the Group Executive Committee. They have expressed admiration for your patience, talents, and insights. You bring balance and diversity of thought to the table. One of the comments I heard goes as follows. With all the technocrats around her, she's measured and patient. She has a big heart. She's very intelligent. She takes everything in, reflects, and offers a unique perspective, a diverse and pertinent view on very serious matters affecting the company and its people. That is a powerful endorsement. When your appointment to Sasol was announced in 2005, Pat Davies, the CEO at the time, who is with us here tonight, was quoted as follows: "We are confident Nolita will have a very positive impact in the portfolios for which she is responsible, and that she will play a prominent and influential role in advancing our transformation ambitions at Sasol." Well, you certainly did make a positive impact with dignity and grace. In my conversation with Pat, I was particularly struck by one of his comments when he said, and I quote, "When you talk about changing a culture of the organization, you cannot be insincere about something like that. You have to live it and epitomize it. And Nolita was really good at helping us get that right."
There was another episode of the book Boardroom Dancing by Nolita Fakude, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. The book is available online and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. The book is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Vuyokazi Tebe. Technical production, Wiseman Manele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuru.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. For 90 years, one voice has informed, challenged, and connected a nation. SAFM, South Africa's national English public radio station. Established in 1936 as the SABC's very first service, the A program, evolving through the English service, Radio South Africa to SAFM in 1995, shaping thought and strengthening democracy. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
King at Kugompo City and
I'm not charged. So whoever would say I'm charged is wrong. I'm not charged. So I'm open to cooperate. There is no question or problem about that.
The country's top cop has broken his silence on an order to appear in court over a controversial multi-million rand health service tender. Please share your views with us. We want to know what's on your mind. 41391, that's the SMS line number. You'll be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Monday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, here's your latest news with Onda Lambana.
Thank you, Sakina. On the top stories, Medicare 24 officers to be served with suspension notices, and Western Cape Police investigate murders of 2 people in Kraaifontein. For SFM News, I'm Lambana, and a very good day. The South African Police Service says 5 of the 12 senior police officers who appeared in the Pretoria Magistrates Court in connection with the Medicare 24 Tshwane district contract have been served with notices of intention to suspend them. The officers have been charged with fraud and corruption. They are accused of assisting alleged underworld crime boss Vusimuzi Ketmatlala to secure a 360 million rand tender to provide health services to the police service. Acting Deputy National Commissioner for Support Services, Lieutenant General Dineo says all the officers will face disciplinary processes.
And yes, internally as the South African Police Service, we follow our disciplinary processes. We have issued the 5 officials with notices of intended suspension. They have been given an opportunity to submit their representations, and their representations will be considered and a decision will be taken. But I can assure South Africans that the necessary disciplinary processes will be undertaken.
The TRC Cases Inquiry has welcomed the Johannesburg High Court decision to dismiss former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application to remove inquiry chairperson, retired Justice Sisi Khapembe. Zuma and Mbeki had asked the court to remove Khapembe from the inquiry, while Mbeki also wanted actions already taken by the commission to be set aside. The court found that the former heads of state had not followed the proper legal processes, making the application invalid. Zuma and Mbeki have also been ordered to pay legal costs. This is TRC Cases Inquiry spokesperson Lionel Adendorf.
The TRC Cases Inquiry is obviously very happy with this judgment. We welcome it, and we are certain that this was the last hurdle after so many attempts to delay our work, to frustrate our work, and that now we can continue with our work uninterrupted.
Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa has gazetted initiation school fees across provinces, with costs varying widely. The move is aimed at regulating the traditional practice and curbing the growing commercialization of the rite of passage. Hlabisa elaborates.
This is an intervention, firstly, that wants to deal with the exploitation and commercialization of the customary initiation, because some people are abusing this right to passage from boyhood to manhood by exploiting and charging exorbitantly. Most of these people are those who are running bogus initiation schools because they...
Police are investigating the murders of a 30-year-old man and a 24-year-old woman who had been shot and killed in the COVID informal settlement in Bloekombos in Kraaifontein. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says police found the 2 victims with gunshot wounds to their heads. He says they were declared dead on the scene.
Police members were called to the crime scene, where they found the victims with gunshot wounds to their heads. Both victims were declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel. The motive for the attack is yet to be determined. The suspects fled the scene and are yet to be arrested.
The Israeli military says it's been carrying out new waves of attacks across Tehran. Earlier, there were reports of widespread power cuts near the Iranian capital and in nearby cities. Recapping the top story, the South African Police Service says 5 of the 12 senior police officers who appeared in the Pretoria Magistrate Court in connection with the Medicare 24 Tshwane district contract have been served with notices of intention to suspend them. I'm Lambana for SFM News headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Well, a very good afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us here on Update at Noon on Delambana. She'll have your news at the bottom of the hour, bringing us the latest headlines. And speaking of headlines, I'm actually just watching on the TV screen that's obviously on mute, but that protest against the coronation of an Igbo king in the Eastern Cape. Now, that march taking place in Kukompo City, and I can tell you that there seems to be quite quite a huge turnout there. A number of people taking to the streets, and I'm just trying to, run my eye over what I can see. Some banners that I can't quite read. I can see some Action SA T-shirts there. I suppose that's an official from the Human Settlements Department, simply because his vest says so. And, quite a few South Africans making their way and attending that particular protest action that's currently underway in Kukompo City, or formerly known as East London. So that's where this march is taking place today. And from the visual advantage that we have, given this angle that's on TV right now, it does seem like it is quite well attended. So we'll check in with our reporter Thumisa also to just find out what exactly is happening there, and of course what ultimately is the objective of doing, who is in attendance. I did understand from earlier that some traditional leaders would also be coming out in numbers there to register their objection. But of course, our reporter will tell us more. Also seeing some South African Police Service members there, obviously, to keep the peace. So that is what's currently taking place in the Eastern Cape. Now, 2 traffic officers have also, officers have burned down in Bushbuck Ridge, and this on the eve of the Easter weekend, where more boots and resources are obviously needed on the ground in order to manage traffic, especially on the R40 road linking Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Nkululeko watching that story for us. If there's anything further to report, we'll bring you up to speed. And then taking a look at a few other stories, Gauteng Education MEC Matume Chilwane is today expected to visit the family of a grade 3 boy who has since passed. The boy was from Lerutle Primary School in Davidton. Now, there was a tragic wall collapse incident that occurred at the school on Thursday last week, and the learner sadly succumbed to the injury.